Hey, Russell here, Prime Motion Training. In this video, I want to take you through a specific question that relates to nutritional labels, which you might find in your numeracy section of your police entrance exam. So let's jump straight into it. The question is at the top here, and it's asking, using the per serving calculation rounded to the nearest tenth of a joule, how many joules of energy are contained per gram of this product? Okay, so there's a few parts there that we need to break up into smaller sections so that we can identify which steps we need to take in which order, and of course what calculation we need to make in order to come up with the correct answer. So it says here using the per serving calculation. Okay, here's our per serving calculation or data here. Okay, then it asks us to round it to the nearest tenth of a joule. Well, we don't have an answer yet, so we can't do that, so we can just ignore that for now, and we need to remember to come back and do that at the end when we have something to round. And it says then how many joules of energy are contained per gram of this product. How many joules of energy? Okay, so the energy is not the fat, not the carbs, not the sodium, etc., but at the top here we can see energy. So how many joules of energy are contained per gram? Well, given this column here is per serving, and we know that there is a 35 gram serving, we don't really know what the per gram is yet. We know what the per 35 gram is yet, it's right there. So we've got a couple of steps to go through to work out the per gram answer for this particular question. Okay, now whenever you've got a question that asks for a certain unit measurement, in this case joules, but the information provided to you in the information or the question is in kilojoules, the first step we really need to do is to convert the information that we've got into the measurement or the unit of measurement that the question is asking for. And then it's much easier to do calculations when you're working with like for like, apples and apples, rather than trying to work out apples and oranges. Okay, so let's work out some sort of conversion now. This 540 kilojoules is the first thing that we need to look at. So we've got 540 kilojoules. Now, kilojoules, kilo, 1,000. If we look at joules over here, we would need to take our kilojoules and add 1,000, if you like, or 3 zeros. If you think 1,000, you might remember 3 zeros. So if we did it back the other way, if you couldn't see this, and we started with 540,000 joules, and we wanted to convert that to kilojoules, then we could just remove this number off the end and end up with 540 kilojoules. So sometimes converting measurements can be a bit of a challenge, but it's a handy skill to remember, going from one measurement to another, whether it's centimeters to meters, millimeters to meters, kilometers to whatever, or joules to kilojoules, vice versa. Okay, so now that we've taken that first step, which is to convert the measurements, now we can move on. So now that we've got our, another color here, now that we've got our 540,000 joules, we can do the next step, which is to divide it by the per serving quantity, which we know is 35. Because at the moment, what we know is that there are 540 kilojoules per serving, which is the same as 540,000 joules per serving, but we want to know per gram, not per serving. We know there are 35 grams per serving, so if we divide this number by 35, divided by 35, we're going to end up with a number of 15428 and 0.57 joules. Okay, that's joules now. So the first step was to convert the measurements. The second step was to divide it by the serving size, if you like, over here that we talked about, the 35 grams. And now if we go back to the question, it did ask us I'll just move that so you can see, to round to the nearest tenth of a joule. Okay, we can do that now because we've got that final number. So if we round to the nearest tenth of a joule, okay, that would push us up to 60. So our answer to the question will be 15428.60. Okay, so that's the third step, which was to round, because the question asked us to do that. If it didn't ask us to do that, then this would also be the correct answer, but it did, and so I need to round it to here. Oh, these labels can be fairly confusing. It's just a case of reading really carefully, making sure that we identify what the calculation is that we really need to do. Okay, and when we've done those steps, we can come up with the answer that we did here. So you may have to watch this video a few times for it to sink in, but I hope it helped. Cheers.